way back and see where we need to make changes. I owe my colleague in the Village of Montrose quite a debt. He had a wonderful Excel format for his budget, and this was a small example of what he had, which was a bottom line calculator in a nice Excel table. So what you see there are the two important classes, residential and business, with the average assessed values for both classes in the two tables. 208,000 for residential, 31,500 for business. Now, of course, in the business class, there's a lot more variability there. The average might not necessarily be a good measure. But I can put in a different figure to see, if you wanted to look at a business that had an assessed value of 300,000 or something like that, all the formulas will update. So without making any changes based on our current proposed revenue and expenditure in terms of general taxation, we're looking at figure, and I should go back again just here, scroll down, of 487,225 for this year, and that's a figure that has involved a lot of paring down so far already, but there's maybe still more fat we can trim off if we really have. And that figure, if you're wondering where that figure came from, is, if I go back here, is based on an approach where we tax at the exact same tax rate or mill rate as we did last year. Basically conceding no tax room to the new regional district service. That means, given we've had a little bit of an increase in assessment year on year, we could afford a small monetary increase in the budget without increasing the actual rate. We can live within that figure and achieve some of the goals that Council has for this year. Not all, but at least some. Overall, you'll see that the net increase looks quite substantial in terms of percentage, 14.3%. However, that is almost entirely taken care of if you look at the RDCK portion of the taxes. Say on an average residential property, an increase to $436 from $286 the year before. We would be standing still. There's a small decrease in hospital district taxation. The credit is going to be zero for this year, and Carol's updated that to reflect that. Apparently there will be another small credit next year as the hospital district is selling some land. So the question for you and for me is that an acceptable level for this year? Is it something you can live with? We maybe have a little bit of flexibility, but not a great deal. The tax burden on the side usually goes in the financial plan bylaw, which basically shows the percentage from each class of the overall requisition. Clearly residential is 76% and business is just shy of 20%. Utilities is fairly high, and there's not a lot of assessment under utilities, but the utilities is, I think, has historically been kept quite high, and in the region I think the utilities has been quite high compared to the provincial multiples as well. Just for the, if you want to break out the RDCK on its own, that's what their levy looks like per class, right there.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand. So the 487,000 is what we need to tax for.
Yes.
So your suggestion then is 14% increase. Is that because it's a net increase in the corner there?
It's an increase overall if you roll in hospital and regional district taxes, not on our own. Ours is staying static.
No, this is your. If you look at the top band here, this is the only one we have any control over.
Right.
This is general municipal.
Right.
And what I've got here in the proposed budget is zero movement in terms of the actual taxes raised.
Okay.
And the mill rate will stay the same. Now, if I go to my other file, I don't know if the other one's closed on me, or maybe not. I should look at the screen. It's
So
clear.
up at the top, it had the ratios, and they're exactly, except for utility, it's exactly at the provincial average for everything else.
Right. So,
Yep.
in preparing this budget, have you gone through and raked as many of the reserve accounts as you possibly can to get the requisition down? Like we talked about gas tax money going into the Water Street project.
There is a substantial volume of gas tax revenue in the proposed budget. I'll bring that up.
So we've exhausted all the options in that regard.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
If I go to general revenue here, we've got transfer of own funds. You can see we're trying in this column here. These aren't very large reserves, but we're transferring from boat launch reforestation to try and make good on some tree replanting. Economic development for the ICCI project, the City Hall Reserve, that's not been taxed for that project. The transfer from the paving reserve to help pay for Water Street of the full amount that's sitting in that reserve of about $31,000. The airport reserve, can't really do much else with that unless you wanted to change its use. Which in theory you could do, but it's sitting at about $74,000 right now. Transfer for New Deal of $133,000. That's getting close to half what we have sitting in reserve, but in deferred revenue for gas tax.
Any other questions at this point?
I would just, so in accounting for this, those numbers reflect the estimated union negotiations.
We
Okay.
have enough. We have at least.
As close as what
I hope that we have enough in the in anticipated revenue and the way we've got things sorted out here
Okay.
that we can accommodate that
Okay.
and agree.
Okay.
So is there anything else you want Neil to bring up? Because now that he's got the magic computer hooked up here, we can look at darn near anything.
Great.
Yeah, it works well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one question just quickly. Gravel sales.
Mm-hmm.
I see you've got it highlighted increase of paving, so you're already.
Yeah, it's rather difficult to predict what the revenue will be there at this point in time. That's still out to tender right now.
Right.
We've provided our rates to the 3 companies that have made inquiries to
Right.
us, but
Okay.
yeah,
And that rate is
$250.
$250.
So our hope is that that may help us, but it's kind of difficult to budget for at this point.
So we're taking that into general revenue, not putting that into more paving?
Well, that's an interesting proposition. We could do that, but I should draw our attention to that aspect of the public works budget. Glenn and I had a quick look at it earlier.
We've done that in the past. but-
Yes.
Well, I think what has typically happened in the past is that when, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, the gravel sales, any revenue from that was committed to the paving reserve fund. Is that where it typically went, or did it go? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, based on our current budget, we're taking everything out that's currently in paving reserve. So, if there is any additional revenue generated from the sale of gravel, if we're planning paving this year, the place to automatically, in terms of an expenditure, we can, I suppose, commit it to the reserve temporarily for a very short period of time. But it would appear under expenses. Let's see if I can find the public works budget here. Road surfaces, which is currently sitting at about 20,000. Now, about half of that is for line painting. No? Is that
There's
no?
a bit, a couple thousand probably for that, I believe is all, and the rest is for dust control.
Dust control, okay.
It's ridiculous what that costs us.
But it means at this point we only have maybe $5,000 to $10,000 of that expenditure figure available for paving beyond Water Street. You could apply a policy where any revenue generated from the sale of gravel this year goes directly to that expenditure area, rather than cut from anywhere else to try and boost that, because you've got a once in 5 year opportunity to do some paving. I don't know how much Glenn would, I think you were looking for a figure around 25 at least or something, weren't you?
I just, the more the better, just because, like I said,
Yeah.
it's only once every 5 years you get this opportunity. And it could be 10 years before they come again. I don't know. It seems to be on a cycle, something like that.
Do you have any streets that really need to be done that you would like to see paved this year?
It would be nice to do railroad.
Okay.
That's high maintenance. We spend a lot of time grading that one, and there's quite a few. It gets a lot of traffic actually. With the trailhead there.
Right, yeah.
That was one of the ones for sure. I'm not sure you know that.
So we don't have any accurate idea how much gravel they want yet, right?
I think we can look that up. The biggest variable right now for us is we don't know what the paving is going to go for. Like, until our standings closes, we don't know what our price is going to be.
Right.
So it's so hard to judge how far we're going to get with the monies we have.
It does look like it's a fairly competitive situation out there on the provincial tender.
About 5 bidders are going after it, so that's a good thing.
And we're pretty sure we can get it for the same price as the province, right?
Yes.
So the challenge with this is if we're not sure what that figure from gravel sale revenue might be. So we could either budget for something and pull something from somewhere else in the expenditures, or we could just apply a policy that any sales go directly into paving this year, and we do what we can outside of Water Street.
That's
I
right.
like the second option. I think that gives you the most flexibility, and it's all going to happen real quick, so you're not going to have a lot of time to...
You're counting on this for revenue right now, on the revenue side?
No.
This 5,000?
No.
Okay. Not that, no.
That was up
Gravel
above, wasn't
sales.
it? Yeah.
No, it was an intangible, so I didn't have a suitable figure to put that into the revenue side in any degree of predictability.
So Councillor Lang, your motion was to commit any funds raised from gravel sales to additional paving.
That's correct.
Second?
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Now, the one area, another expense that Glenn indicated could be deferred, and I'm fairly comfortable at this point in saying that Public Works have a very full plate of work ahead of them. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's right there.
Oh, yeah, there it's possible to defer. The Public Wharf second, that's a $20,000 expenditure there for taxation. It could be dropped in theory for a year.
There's not a lot of work for us in that, like it's not going to take a lot of time
Mhm.
at all. He builds it and installs it himself, but it's something you guys have to decide whether it's.
That's
That's right.
one additional section or two?
No, that's to do as much again going the other direction, or almost as much again.
Just my opinion, when I look at it, especially this time of year with the low water, I don't know if it makes sense to try to go all the way down the side of the big wharf with those floats, because they're high and dry basically at this time of year.
Yes, they are at this time. Well, they're almost probably floating again now. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
lake's
talk
coming
about
up. Just my thought was maybe one section just to add on to what's there, to take it, further east.
No, further west, you mean?
No, like towards the lake.
Oh.
Well, I just thought it looked like it could use one more section there. And
You could probably put another section on the other end too.
the other thing, I don't want to take this conversation way off on a tangent, but it struck me when I was out there when the water was really low that we're almost at the point where we might want to think about doing some dredging in there, because of the way it's building up, Like there's not a lot of clearance when you come between the wharf and the boathouse when the water's low. Like,
The environmental issues with that, I need to think.
well, if they can dredge Grove and Narrow, sure the hell we can dredge a little bit on Castle Bay. But that's a conversation for another day. I don't want to go there.
I guess my question, Glenn, would be, you're down there probably quite frequently. Did it seem like it was packed all the time with the reduced size? Or have we had complaints that the size of it, that it wasn't sufficient to tie transient boats up to?
I'm not aware of complaints. That wouldn't really come to me normally. But there is sometimes that it's full. If there was no locals there, it would help. But I think there'd still be times when it's over full. But not too often, like 2 or 3 weekends a year.
I guess another question would be, would the price go up if we reduce the number of sections, right? If we're buying only 1 out of 4 sections, is the price going to go up because it's a smaller order?
I don't think so, because he's only out of Nelson. I think if you talk to him, I think he would probably want to be off the coast. Whatever it is.
It's for the amount of dollars and what you get out of it, notwithstanding, maybe it's not useful, it's pretty cheap infrastructure that really has a pretty big impact. I did have a couple of complaints when I was down there last year that people were looping around a little bit, but that, like I said, is very specific times. It's just when it gets really busy. I think we do have to understand though, that now that we have a proper boat ramp there, there's going to be increased pressure in it, I think, for this little bit. So it's really a small amount of money for what we get out of it. If it ends up being a bad location, these things are pretty portable too. You'd be able to configure things different ways down there.
Just a quick question, is it, you had the brass ready to go for the boat launch, is that on the work schedule for this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not quite sure how we're gonna anchor it and stuff, but
Right. How are they, and you're gonna need a structure so that you can go up and down with the lake, right? Is that budgeted for?
no. Well, yes, maybe.
Yes, maybe.
Oh, yes.
There's $5,000 we budgeted to finish, to complete the boat launch. This is left over from,
Right.
and the only thing left to do is, and we don't even have to do it, because I think it's going to pack in there really well, is from the concrete up to the road. Or just packed it and smoothed it again, and it's looking pretty good. And it's not that steep there, so we might be able to just leave it as crushed, or possibly when these guys come in to do the paving, that might be the cheapest way to go, is have them run a strip in there.
A paved strip.
Yeah, just to the top of the concrete.
Well, I think having that wharf section would be a real benefit to the boat launch,
Yes.
and if we're gonna cut back in this area, maybe, and we're short of funds in the other area, maybe that's where we can go with it. I don't know, just a thought.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you want, council wants to leave the figure as it is. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this is an even smaller one, but one I thought was almost a slam dunk for taking out once I discussed it a bit with Chair Hewitt, was under council expenses. The tablets for the new council. There's so little time between the first meeting of the new council and the end of the year that can easily be an acquisition in 2015. So I'll just, unless you, I'll just bring that down to 15.
So the first meeting of
Yeah.
council would be the inaugural, and really
Yeah.
you wouldn't need anything for that. And then there would just be one regular meeting, and, you know, that's only a week later, so to actually go out and obtain the devices and make them useful for that first meeting, it would be pretty almost impossible, I think. So, yeah, that's what we thought. It would be safe to remove that.
I'll make a motion to remove it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. And then maybe one of the first items that the new council could do is decide what kind of device they want, and, you know, as a, you know,
Our staff could just tell them.
or staff could tell them what was the best, you know, for the system that they've got going at that time.
So one area, here we are. This area here, I have kept this in, and again, it's a soft project in one sense, but it's emerging as something that's fairly important in another. We really need to quite soon tackle our maze system and get it in optimal condition. And I believe that's going to cost a bit of money with Temple Consulting to get us there. However, is it absolutely 100% essential this year? No. I think staff would very much like to use those funds and get it sorted, but again, it is a soft number, and we can also reduce our training amounts as well if you feel the need to cut. Certainly in my case. The computer maintenance budget seems to be pretty well on target for the kind of number we'd need. Can maybe shave a little bit of it, but we've got quite a bit of work that needs done in this room this year. Although we've got some community development funds to do a job there, we may get some funds from the Columbia Basin Trust to help us out. that's still up in the air. I have no idea really what kind of numbers we're going to be looking at for IT this year because of the changes with the basement, with the high-speed internet. CBT is covering some of it, but certainly not all, and we do want to improve the utility of the Campbell building and the municipal chambers.
I have a question. It might be better directed towards Carol. With the maze maintenance agreement that we got, do we get, I know we need to keep it, but is there a lower level? Like, because do you actually get much value for what we pay? Like, do you feel that you get, if it's $5,000 a year, do you get $5,000 worth of service out of
Yeah,
that?
it's more than $5,000 a year. We can call them up any time, and they will do little things for us, but if we try to get them to change, like the general ledger is what really needs change, so that we can have all of the codings changed and add a department, which you can break them out
Yes.
more.
Yeah.
And I think he quoted that at $2,000 last time I talked to him. So if you do big things like that to make it work for you more, they're going to charge you. And we can't reduce that maintenance fee.
Oh, that's-
It is set, that is what it is. I don't care how much time we use it, don't use it.
And the actual shape of the budgets that you see here by department and the subtotals and areas of administration and activity, that's where we're not at with the maze system. Essentially, we've built this ourselves with an Excel file. We should have, I think about 5 years ago, with maze should have been able to generate reports, variance reports that essentially looked like this with that system, but we can't. I was pretty taken aback the other day. I asked, I think it was Stephanie, to print me out a copy of the tax bill. And it's basically, it's straightforward enough for the public to see what their bottom line of what they're paying is. However, you've got regional district up here, hospital district down there, municipal taxes somewhere in the middle, BCAA, MFA, no order to it, not broken out by branch of government or anything like that. And I asked, well, how can we fix that and make it more legible? Again, we have to go back and fix maze to get that very simple thing to be done in a more legible format.
So in essence, if we could invest that amount of money, like $2,000 to $3,000, getting them to renumber the system, then it should be actually, we should realize economies in staff time, right? Because you've spent countless hours
Yes, this has been
developing this, and even next year it's going to be the same if we leave the numbering the way it is, because you have to integrate those numbers from all over the place to the proper formats.
No, there certainly is a cost in terms of staff time with it the way it currently is, but it's certainly, I mean, the municipality has managed the other way for a while with it, but you are paying a significant amount of money a year for maze. It's a good quality product. It just needs a little bit of work to get it into the shape it should be. Carol and I were both very impressed with the way New Denver's was set out when we went over there, for example, and I think Council would be too. You'd see some very good variance reporting presented on a regular basis.
So people wouldn't be scratching their heads and saying, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So just in your everyday work, it would be highly beneficial to have that done.
I would like to have the GL reconfigured.
And so that could be covered under that maze training, although that's not what that was targeted for, was it? It was more for actual training?
Yes, but if we're bringing, my hope is that we could try and bundle that into a package. If someone has to come out, for example, to take us through some of these things and essentially show us how to fix it.
Yeah.
Essentially, Karen and Stephanie have pretty good knowledge of the system, but even so, they've been working with it for years. They still haven't quite gotten to the point where they're confident in working and making changes of this nature. So it's quite an involved system.
Mary?
We're changing the way we do business in this village. And we've known about these accounting problems for quite some time, and we just kind of went with the flow because it was easier. I really think we got to bite the bullet here on this particular cost item and give the staff the tools they need. I'll get to the Campbell Memorial Building. We could never figure out whether we're making money or losing money. You know, so simple things like that. I think Glenn would be more appreciative if he could see on a quarterly basis, you know, what he is, budget versus actual, because, you know, poop happens out there and suddenly you got an emergency and you know where you're at. So to me, in terms of service to the citizens, I think we can have a better discussion with people when we have got a system that reflects, at least on a quarterly basis. Is this what we talked about, Neil? Mm-hmm. At least on a quarterly basis. Are we on budget or aren't we on budget? I mean, I'd love to see the little note we send out, the council is on budget.
And just, I mean, this is a minor thing, but you see there around where we've got the 10,000 for computer maintenance. You see, but I've deliberately left zero in hardware and software purchase. Really, for computer hardware and software, really all we need is one line item with a proper budget for everything, rather than having three. You know, it's my hope is to collapse some of these areas. Insurance and claims, council will see there that, again, a cause for optimism. There's been a substantial drop in our insurance costs in our switch of provider. And the MIABC situation may generate further savings, perhaps later in the year. If we'll certainly make some inquiries come the time. But currently we're quite satisfied with the new arrangements with Capri Insurance. I can't talk too much about it in an open meeting, but we should anticipate for 2015 some potential changes in terms of our relationship with the province of BC and the Campbell Building. It looks like there are some changes afoot that are coming. I had a meeting last week with some staff from Service BC, but I think there'll be a request for some meetings in the fall.
So everyone was comfortable leaving that 5,000 in there? Yeah. Were there any other areas that we had identified the other day?
I'll go through the capital projects just to be on the planning and studies, just to reaffirm I've anticipated deferment of the OCP review zoning projects. Some in-house activities are always possible. We've got a fairly interesting temporary use permit application coming, I believe. The airport lands expansion, that's an actual there. That was Baron McLean's time. The rest will be taken care of in-house. ICSP expense is coming to an end. There's still, I think, one more bill on that to come. And, of course, the final draft. And of course, one thing the public may notice is that we don't completely dispense with fire protection in the municipal budget. We still have, we're still looking at the odd bill that's coming in here and there that we struggle with the regional district to get paid. So we need a little bit of flexibility there, and also the fire inspection service remains with us.
So then other than Water Street, the other major projects that we have are funded by grant revenues mostly, aren't they?
Yeah.
Through gas tax?
Yes.
Okay.
Most, yeah, no, and it's true when you look at that area there. The public fourth is actually one of the areas where we're actually spending some tax dollars now. The boat launch construction is now an actual. We've got the LED New Deal projects. I've got packaged as packaged for a gas tax New Deal proposal, and also the Water Street Development Program is the hard 75,000 we're budgeting for the paving, curb and gutter work that won't qualify for any New Deal funding. However, we're going as heavily as we can into gas tax to reduce the costs of Water Street.
Councillor Hooper?
The Kimball Building geothermal, well, what is the $5,000 for?
We still have some possible work there to get the building optimal. But there was when we had the breakdown and we brought some people in the winter. We had a discussion about the poor circulation of the heating system when it was working. For example, in this room and in the Service BC village office area as well. There may be, that figure may be a little on the high side. What do you think, Glenn?
No, I think
No, you
it's
think so, no?
But the utilities expense for the building should go way down now that Adam Jim's made some changes and now we're running, I think, pretty much exclusively on the geothermal rather than propane. There was, the other fella did a lot of things for it.
There was something at the bottom here, just scroll down. Historic something.
Oh, that's our. Again,
Yes.
that's our.
Right.
That's our. That's our proposed year one repayment to the province.
Okay.
And again, that's a reason why we can't really concede too much tax room to the regional district service this year to address that matter.
Okay.
Can I get more explanation on that? I'm not sure what we're talking about.
That's the Hilts.
The payments in lieu of taxes that were not remitted.
Oh,
over
right.
years.
Okay.
Essentially, we've already paid. I think it's Carol? It's about 11,000 to that figure for 2013. The other figure represents the accrual that's been sitting in under liabilities for a number of years.
Any other questions?
Some of the debts that we have, are they coming due? Like, are we going to be, like, are we still budgeting for payments on some of the, like, waterworks or stuff money's been borrowed? Or some of that coming to an end or maybe not?
I don't think so. We've got several more years on all of them.
And of course, we're budgeting here on the new backhoe on the 5-year scenario. So although it's high for 5 years, it's sort of high for 5 years. The machinery is paid for.
So do we ultimately remove anything out of this exercise?
Yes, I think
Well, there's 3,000.
you removed
Yes.
3,000.
Yes. Okay, so that's why I got the 3,000.
And there's still the money for the fire hall demolition is still kind of in there.
It's still in there. Yes, it's within that city hall pool figure. I mean, I would assume that grants aren't forthcoming from Parks Canada or CBT once we submit to them, that you may want to discuss your options, but of course the year only has so many months of construction season in it. We certainly have enough resources there to deal with the demolition and do some restorative work on the exterior of the building. But it does leave us with a bit of a challenge for the years to come.
Can I ask you a question on the grant, the ICCI grant? So that's the revenue is 3,000,
Yes.
and our expense side was 5. Like, is it going to cost 8,000 for?
No, it's basically, it was built on the initial proposal was built on a three-partner idea, which was CBT, ourselves, and ICCI. ICCI only funded the web part of it. I'm currently getting quotes from iCompass. I can spend up to $6,000 on our website in terms of match funding, or I could come in under basically pulling the other half from our economic development reserve. I've seen very little enthusiasm from the CBT to look at the groundwork that we were proposing to do, even though it was focused on the broadband area for kaslo, and basically putting a strategy in place for making the most of it and helping us market that advantage. There didn't seem to be a lot of interest in it. So it will enable us to improve our public image on the internet, and we can add some extra utility to it. But we won't get that big overall project, I don't think, and there may at the end of the day be some of that reserve money left over for sets to do something else with. I would guess maybe at least 2,000 of the 5 that's there.
Right. Yeah, because that's what we're hoping, that there would be something. Otherwise, it sort of hamstrings the committee. Access to something.
Yes. So I think they're pretty well safe for at least 2,000 of that reserve for sets purchase.
Do you have any other questions? So that will be the way we'll leave it then? Alright. So we'll go on to then, so that was 1 and 2, so we'll go on to number 3, the audit update.
Okay, now, I've had a number of discussions. It doesn't really need to go in camera or anything, but the substance of the advice from regional district colleagues and from others that I've sought counsel from is that we simply proceed with approving the consolidated financial statements, at which point Berg Lehman will probably come to take us through the audited financial statements in the near future. Berg Lehman were willing to come this week, but we couldn't get quorum to attend on a potential date this week. It's a bit of a... I appreciate your frustration on this, but essentially the consolidated financial statements are statements that I primarily have to take responsibility for. Berg Lehman take responsibility for the audited ones.
Even though they will be identical.
Yes. Yes. It's one of these things that we do need to address this year and probably have some further in-camera discussion.
So do you want a motion that we approve the financial statements?
But you can either make the recommendation or you can wait till the 22nd and just do it there. It's already been on your agenda.
Okay. Okay, then number 4, for A, is a letter from Joe Brady asking us to basically not take on a bunch of lofty projects, which, you know, I think we've gone through it, and most of our projects are being funded by grants, and so they aren't going to have tax implications. The one major one that is something that's been on the books for a long time, and that is Water Street, and we did make a commitment. So that's, I think that's predominantly where the taxation is going, besides just the basic running of the village, which are things that we can't make any movement on. So, I don't know whether we just want to receive the correspondence, or if somebody feels that we need to reply to it.
She asked for a reply? I thought she did.
I would appreciate your thoughts on my comments about it. So,
Well, I think you hit it on the head, and direct staff to reply with similar language that you made, that these projects that have been brought to this budget are funded through various grants.
and won't have, that we've limited the ones that will have tax implications.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Even Water Street is
A lot of
tax.
grants, yeah,
yeah.
and reserve money. So,
So you want a motion for that?
I think we should have a motion to recommend to council that we have staff respond.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Alright, and then there's sample bylaws, which some of them really didn't look very good, but you could call them up here.
Yeah.
Do you have the one that you favor?
Not particularly.
No.
Now, I can't remember how these were put up here. Was it bundled in one, or no? The Alert Bay one was protected somehow. But the bare bones one, you just wanted to see a few samples. Is a bare bones one. In Schedule A, you have the revenue and the expenditure have to come to zero. The financial plan objectives and policies was something you wanted some examples of. So in this case, they basically, over the term of the plan, funding sources as defined by the community charter are derived as shown in Table 1. They basically show where it comes from. That's the tax burden table I have on Excel. Objectives and policies, you can either go basic or a little more elaborate. You know, things like seek and identify alternative revenue sources, reduce dependency on taxation. There's also a place to explain explain why your tax ratios are the way they are, why you maybe have a ratio that's stronger towards business than residential, or it veers away from the provincial multiples significantly. You can choose to put some text in there about that.
Do we want wording in there that the village is holding to the provincial average on ratios other than in utilities? Or do you want mention of that?
I'd like to mention the fact that we are the most effective municipality when it comes to taxation of the 156 in the province. We are the best.
Is that something that would go, that would be more of an...
Well, all I'm saying is, people may complain, but other jurisdictions, are taxing in order to build reserves and do a number of other kinds of things. I don't think we're doing that. But
Although we should.
well, absolutely we should, because we're digging ourselves a hole here. But I don't know how fancy you want to get, but when the BC Business Council recognizes you as the top community in the province of 156, and I'll dig it out because John Dooley sent it to me, but maybe that's over exaggerating, I don't know, but when people say, gee, we're really taxed here, the bottom line is this community does not tax similar to other communities for a number of reasons. But I like the idea of, you know, we're close to the provincial numbers, plus or minus, you know, a very small amount, right? So it's not like we're out of line with what other municipalities are doing. And I think a few statements is the beginning of a process to try to get people to come to these committee of the whole finance meetings so we can explain to them our fixed costs. And I mean, one of the things I'd add is, you know, we're in the union negotiations and we think the budget as it's presented will deal with the increases that the union are going to require, so that people understand that we had to cut elsewhere in order to create room for union negotiations. But I don't know how detailed you want to go, or you just want to leave that for committee of the whole discussions later on, or whatever. But when people ask questions, you know, if we could come up with a statement that we all agree on, then we can all give the same answer.
I think that the challenge we're faced with is we have to come up with something like right away, because staff needs time to get the bylaws written, because they have to be adopted prior to May 15th. Is that correct?
I need to have the bylaws ready for you for next Tuesday. We'll start it. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could prepare it afterwards. When did the tax notice go?
Prepare what?
Well, just, you know, a overview of how we arrived at these numbers or something. Was that your suggestion or not?
You could put, no, this is there's a schedule in the financial plan bylaw that contains council's objectives and policies around taxation. So basically there are some, it gives you an opportunity to say what you want to say about taxation. For example, we're doing something this year that Seaward's not doing. If you look at the bottom of page 3 or 4, tax rates are fully adjusted to eliminate the impact of changes in assessment due only to market changes as identified by the BC Assessment Authority. To keep our tax rate down, we're actually, or to keep the budget the way it is, we're actually taking full advantages of the changes in assessment this year.
Yeah.
And tax, so some communities would actually reduce to keep to not, as it were, punish property owners for increases in their assessment. So in this case, this year we're not really in a position to do that. To attract and sometimes there's some verbiage to attract and sustain residential homes as well as business, commercial, and industrial enterprises. Basically, the open for business kind of statements. Permissive tax exemptions. We do have something to say there. And that's a very basic example, which might be to council's, that might be conducive, because you still have to have that discussion in the summer to ensure permissive tax exemptions are utilised to maximise the benefit of non-profit organisations to the municipality and the citizens. Very straightforward, and gives you a lot of breadth. If I pull up another example from a larger municipality I'm familiar with, again, you see your revenue objectives. You do have a little bit of flexibility over how this gets presented.
And what form did ours generally take? Did it follow any of these? Like, was it similar to any of the examples that you gave, or was it?
In some ways, I'm the wrong person to ask, because I struggle to open some of the Corel products. Carol would probably know what we've been doing with those schedules though over the years.
Yeah, it was a basic bylaw with attached schedules of the budget. It was basic.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think it was a little bit more bare bones. I think that would be fair to say.
Right.
All I'm drawing your attention to here is that there's an opportunity to do a bit more than just put the 5-year plan on there. It's an opportunity to put out some very basic policies around taxation. I can certainly put some very basic wording in it for this year. Maybe you want to revisit it next year, because it is an opportunity to state to the community what your position is on taxation, and it might help future councils as well.
I'm thinking that we, really, after budget's done and the tax collection is over with, for staff, maybe we can even start tapping that we don't have to wait until budget, because, now that we've only got, you've got a few days to put it together, it could be something that we try to work on during the year, and so that it's prepared, so it's just putting the numbers in, rather than waiting until now, and when it's crunch time, and then there's no time for really making the decision to see what it actually will look like when we've been able to put our numbers in there. So I think my recommendation would be that we, put a little bit more in there, but keep it fairly straightforward, because really staff has 2 days to prepare. 3 max, because it's got to be ready for Tuesday night, being that Friday is because Friday's a holiday and Monday's a day off, so that's why we're, staff is pretty under the gun right now. And as long as we meet legislative requirements with it, which we must have in the past, it's minimalistic, but we met requirements, so, put a few changes in that.
You can put a little or a lot of work into those schedules, and it certainly can help staff, and it can also help the construction of the annual reports as well.
Any other comments? I wonder, are we, does Glenn need to stay for anything else, or this? Well, the only thing that you need is 2015 projects. Is that something?
Oh yes, that actually would concern me. I think.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's the non-awareness stuff. The geotech.
For the water.
Yeah.
I was just thinking,
Yeah,
please, you
sounds
could.
good.
All right. Okay, so we're ready to move on to C then.
Yep.
And after discussion with the CAO, we determined that I should probably depart the chair and have the mayor take the chair for this discussion because of a perceived conflict of interest, being that I am a member of the board of the Kaslo and Area Chamber of Commerce and not the representative anymore. So let you take over and I'll leave the room.
It's the. Have you got that up? It's the.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
I guess I was looking down on page 3 there. I guess this is the ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
The ask is $22,000.
No, it was 15.
Yeah, it was 15.
This was the description that
Right.
you asked me to provide.
Councilor Lane.
This was to come from Community Works
Yeah.
funds via the regional district.
The Regional District Community Development.
Community development
Yeah.
funds, I just want to make sure I got that there. And our allocation for this year,
We've got 1, 2, 3. We're about halfway through that allocation right now.
okay, was there any money left over from last year?
It was all committed to the broadband project last year.
Okay. So we are currently halfway through our allocation without this. And what other projects do we have?
Okay, it's the, I should have had this written up for you. It's the work on this room for audiovisual. And we're not sure what the bill is going to be or what the scope's going to be for the project yet. I'm hoping to keep those costs down. There's 3,000 for the health committee. And there's 5,000 for the rural summit.
Okay, that's money we've allocated
That's
already.
money we've allocated already.
That makes up to half
Well, it's not
Well,
quite half. It's
it's not quite
it's 13,000
out of a total requisition
of
of
30.
30. Okay.
Really? So the 5,000 for the boat launch that we're budgeting, that's not coming from community development?
Not at the moment.
No.
And based on our SEDS discussion yesterday, I think it would be worth supporting, $15,000 because, who's the secretary?
Secretary
Of
of
SEDS?
Oh, David Stewart.
David Stewart. We kind of had a discussion, made a motion that there would be $10,000 for an arts and culture. What officer, Jim, what did we call this guy?
Yesterday?
Coordinator. No, this was a long time ago.
Oh,
So they had a strategy meeting, the chamber did, and they felt there was some compatibility there where they could meet his needs with this person's position. So there's a number of ways in which this individual could assist. One of the ones was website for SEDS. So, my feeling is that we got 15,000 left over.
Yeah.
My feeling is that if they got $15,000, they could go out and raise the balance of the money they need to, or at least get us through to, when would that get us through to? November 2014. Well, and the other thing to do is to say it would be $15,000 based on securing the balance from other funders. If they don't get the balance from other funders, then they don't get the money. What do you think?
Yeah, I just want to protect a small amount of the remaining money until we have the wildfire interface project completely done. We may require several $1,000s, not anything like that total amount. I'm only talking about 5 max that we're looking at right now that might be needed. I'm hoping not even that to complete the Washington unit, as was discussed at the last budget meeting. However, that wouldn't preclude a conditional response from the municipality to this request. It's just it's timing more than anything, and the amount and variable.
When they came and gave us our presentation, or their presentation, I did ask the question whether this would be something they would be asking the village every year. I just wonder, because it is indicated it's a $22,000 a year position, how it's going to be sustainable, because, you know, we will have set projects every year that come up, so I don't want the village to get locked into the expectation that we're going to provide whatever it is every year.
Councilman.
Well, I think the response there is we have no, it's a new council and we can't make commitments
Well, that's true.
for a new council. If they choose not to support this initiative next year, that's entirely their prerogative and we have no control over that.
Right.
I think we should support this initiative. It's, I do like Mayor Lay's comment that this would be based on their ability to raise the sufficient funds to
$7,000.
the 7,000 or so to see this thing through to its full completion. It's a position we've talked about creating for a number of years now, and until we get it running up the flagpole and see what the potential is, we'll never really know how effective it really is. You know, I think it's a fairly modest request in scope when you think of what it could, you know, a full-time, somebody even devoted half-time year-round would cost. And the fact that the building office has been donated, and the furniture's been donated, and the computers have been donated, and I think the village needs to step up at some point and maybe make some kind of contribution to this effort.
Right, CEO. So what amount do you think we should hold for the fire interface?
I wouldn't. I'd be reluctant to leave anything less than 5,000 at the moment, just to be absolutely sure we've got enough. The project scope has been narrowed because of feedback we've received from UVCM, and we should hear more in the next few days.
So where does that leave us with?
Let me do my quick addition here. That would be. That would leave you with 12,000.
Well, that's all we got. That's all we can spend, right?
What's your thought, Jim?
Well, I'm not real comfortable with it. On the original request, I was just doing a quick number crunching here. That would mean that 70% of the total operating budget of the chamber would be given by the village of Kaslo. Something seems out of whack to me about that. Right now, we're currently giving them $7,000 a year annually for their operations, and it seems a little focused on kind of I admit the business sector is a super place you want to pay attention, and I think having some kind of fund position supported in here makes some kind of sense. I like kind of what you guys are saying about some of the crossover potential here, but this is not what they presented to us. That's not, none of that's stated in their proposal at all, these ideas that you guys have come up with. And it seems just really hefty and disproportionately weighted towards an organization that's been traditionally pretty well funded by us. I have a hard time trying to understand really how somebody would be busy in that office for 40 hours a week for the months of July and August. I don't quite know what they'd be doing according to their job description here. It's doing mail, taking care of their mail, and running errands to this office supply store, and something doesn't quite line up for me. So I'm not totally comfortable with that kind of expenditure right now. And then, of all of that, those are considerations. But of all that, the main thing I see here is a real problem is there's nothing here that, at this point, that demonstrates other than relying completely on grant monies funding this position, and that's not sustainable. I would be more comfortable if there was a business model in here. I mean, these are business people. I'd be more comfortable if there was a business model in here to make me understand how this person's going to generate revenue other than writing grants, because you can't rely on grants nowadays. That's not sustainable. And it creates an awkward cycle where this year they had a position, next year they wouldn't, the following year they might. It's not sustainable. So if the model is more based on what you guys are talking about around partnerships that demonstrate where there's some revenue generating capacity in a business case sense around this, it makes more sense to me. But at this point, it seems it's not going to be as sustained as an offering as I'd like to see coming from funding an organization to the tune of, what I say, 70%. I mean, their total, if on the original ask, our total funding contribution then would be $22,000, and their gross operating budget's only $32,000. It's kind of something that seems a little out of skew to me.
Well, I'd like to go back. I mean, maybe, what if the council, what if the chamber got out of the business of running May Days? Would that, I mean, to me, that isn't money that we're giving to them. That's, they're taking on the burden of all that money goes to May Days. It doesn't go to support anything else. So, you know, in terms of that situation, you don't agree?
Well, not all that money goes to Maydays. Isn't Maydays, I mean, it does, you know, bring other things in. So a portion of our $7,500 goes to Maydays.
Well,
I believe,
yeah,
right?
my understanding is that's what the contract costs. By the time you pick up the garbage and pump the toilets and get the shit show and shine together, I could be wrong.
They're showing a $5,500 grant for committees from the village.
Any chance I can make any comments?
Public meeting, isn't that a public meeting?
Not public time at this point.
Even though it's committee of the whole?
Well, we have a public time when we're done.
Before or
I'm
after.
not talking on behalf of the, I'm not a member of the Chamber of Commerce anymore, so I wouldn't be talking on their behalf.
It's just protocol. It's not, we have a public time
Yeah,
after we've done.
we'll have to change the regulations, but yeah, it's, my understanding was that the public could be part of this discussion at the committee of the whole, but now we've kind of got to.
I know you're trying to make a decision, but you don't have all the information, I feel. So.
Yeah, well, so now what we need to do is wait until this meeting ends, and then we'll have the 15 minutes for public time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil. Did the public, they can participate at the beginning too, if they want to? They don't have to be a delegation, they can just ask questions?
That's for the monthly meeting.
Oh, that's for the monthly?
Yeah, for the
This
budget
is a
meeting.
committee of the whole budget.
For the
meeting.
budget
So this
meeting.
isn't the regular committee of the whole meeting, this is
Yeah.
the budget.
There's usually a time at the end.
Go ahead.
If you're not ready to make a decision on this right now, all I need to do is budget on the expenditure side, and I'll create a new, basically an unallocated figure for the community development fund. And it doesn't need to. There may be a timeline for the chamber, but it doesn't need to get allocated right now.
No.
It's tax neutral.
Well, it is tax neutral, but I want to make a recommendation that
Well,
we,
you can't, you're the chair. So you can't make any motion. You can recommend it right now. I mean,
Councilman,
Okay, I think Councillor Hollins, a few, I don't agree with everything he said, but a few of his comments I think are germane to the discussion here. And the way I'm looking on this is it's an opportunity to create a position that I think could be benefit to our community. It may not be perfect in every way, and what it probably needs is some people to sit down with the chamber and say, we'd like to put a little more flesh on these bones. Like, we would like to add some responsibilities and duties to your job description. We'd like to see you take on a few more projects over the course of the summer that would be of benefit, whether they research, whether it's study, whether it's surveys, whether it's whatever, you know. I think we could get good value for our dollar here if there's And this could possibly be something that SEBS could maybe be participating in terms of providing some input, saying here's something we'd like to see handled, or here's something we need information on. I guess I want to ask you, Neil, in your experience, are Chamber of Commerce typically funded solely by the municipal governments that the
Very often there's a large share of municipal funding involved, and they're also largely supported through their membership fees. In a lot of communities as well, some of their functions are propped up by visitor centre arrangements.
Are you done?
Yeah, I can go ahead.
I do see also an overlap with some of what the visitor center does. And, we really limitedly fund the visitor center, and some of what is presented here is what is done there as well. So again, I really want to support this to a certain point, but I think there needs to be a bit more work and maybe a little bit more liaison with the Historical Society to see where, I don't want to overlap, so that I am concerned that the Moyer or the Visitor Center depends a lot on Tourism BC funding. I don't want to see that taken away by this position.
But they're not applying for any funding.
Well, I know they're not at this point, but again, some of what's happening here is what is already being done at the Moyer. They're an ambassador for the village as well, and a lot of people go down there and get information. I think they can definitely work hand in hand. But again, there seems to be quite a bit of an overlap.
Well,
Councilor,
I don't know where this conversation is going. I think we need to move on. I'd like to put a motion that we support this initiative to the tune of $12,000. And I can put a bunch of whereases in there. I really do think that there needs to be some collaboration between the Moyer group and the village council and SEDS and the chamber. I think there needs to be
Conditions to be negotiated.
okay.
second? Seeing no second, the motion fails. I'm not allowed to second.
So, just by way of an explanation, you guys have read the job description, correct?
I have.
It's just, this is a job that I do. That's how I've made most of my living for the last 23 years. And what's laid out here, there's no, like you're talking about meat on the bones, this is sorely lacking in any kind of, for the amount of work that this person's going to generate. So either that gets flushed out or something. And I'm a little hesitant to offer the money in advance of the job description being flushed out. So what you're recommending is that we give them the money and then we ask them to generate subject to negotiations, and that seems to be putting the cart before the horse. That's the only reason I'm
Well, it does say conditions to be negotiated, so it's not a carte blanche.
Where it's offering the money in advance, it's saying go figure out how to spend some money. I would rather somebody come up with a project, because in the granting world, that is the classic mistake that's continually made by myself, is there's pots of money floating around for specific things, and we try to groove our operations or activity to fit that money the way it's defined, and it doesn't work out well. So it's just not as efficient. If they could come up with something that's more, identify these partnerships and kind of these overlapping things that you guys were talking about, and discuss with those partners in advance, because that would make more sense for me. That's basically it. Anyway, we don't want to burn up too much time talking about it.
Okay.
Can I
Councilor?
final comment? I just don't know, how do you take that information back to the chamber, though? What's the message we're sending here? That no, not now, but maybe later, or possibly if you come up with a better job description. I'm curious where this is headed, or is this just a flat denial or refusal?
Councillor?
I don't see it as a denial at all. I mean, I think all of us are, supportive of the initiative and realize that the value in it. But, I mean, I have some of the same concerns that Councillor Holland does. I want to put a number figure to it. I feel like I need a bit more information. We have one more council meeting this month. If it's not too late, we could maybe, come up with a couple of things that we could forward to the chamber and ask them to either come with a delegation on Wednesday or next Tuesday. We can email them the questions that we have and ask to provide a bit more information and maybe some of our other concerns that we're having.
I'm fine with that. That's at least he leaves the door open a crack.
I'm a little bit concerned about using all of our money that we have left. We always have things that happen during the year, and I like to leave a little bit of cushion. We don't have any room in our budget for any kind of wiggle room for much.
Okay. So can we go to 4B?
Are you ready to have?
Yep, get Susan.
Yeah, but are we going to talk about the questions that we still have, or?
Well, I think that would be a
Email
really
them.
positive move. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You two don't want to sit down with them and deal with it, or you want Neil to craft the questions, or?
Well, any questions I have, I can email you by tomorrow. Which would still give room on the agenda to ask the chamber.
Can you get your questions to Neil by tomorrow?
My questions, I don't,
Or
my lacking was in their proposal, so if I go out and figure out what makes them a better proposal, I mean, somehow that's not really my position. I could probably try to work up a proposal that would make some kind of sense, but that's not my place. I mean, it's kind of their business. And so I'm going on the role and responsibilities of what they've laid out here. And I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at for $15,000 or $10,000, do I see a value here for the ratepayers of the village of Kaslo for that amount of money? And I have to say no. Because this is what I've got to go on.
Well,
you guys mentioned a whole bunch of
that's good enough. That's all Neil has to tell him.
Yeah. But
There does not appear to be value for the ratepayers of Kaslo with this proposal. You don't have to get into any details. That's your position,
that's just me personally.
Yeah. So I don't know how you get away from that. Isn't council's position. That's your position.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we deal with that?
well,
I mean, other than sitting down,
Deal
sitting
that
down
out.
with these. What's that?
you would deal with that in the vote. I mean, if they
Deal with
come
that
to
what?
in the vote, like if I have a figure that I have in my head, but if they come and give a bit more information and maybe address some of the questions that I have, then if he doesn't support that, then he votes no.
I could present an alternative to this funding where if we were to do a baseline economic study or commit to what the regional district, what the Rural Development Institute's doing around business attention and expansion and develop ways to assist business directly with that money. If this position was, if it identified something more specific and tangible outcomes, I could understand it a lot more. But if for my amount to come loose on this and this is all they're held to be accountable, there's not much value there for me. That's all.
Okay, well, I'll put a motion. I will support $8,000 as our contribution for this year.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion. And what I guess, Councillor Wu, and my question would be, would you consider further support if this proposal had more substance to it?
I would say yes and no. I mean, again, I partially feel that we need to save a little bit more of that community development fund for things that come up during the course of the year. I mean, that's only leaving us $4,000, which isn't a very big amount of money. I mean, Neil has already suggested that there may be things that are going to cost more than what we think. I mean, again, I really see a value in this, and I think starting this, initiative would be good, and if we can continue it on, that's great. I don't think the village should be the one that always contributes a certain amount every year, but again, you're right, council's changing, and that's not my decision to make.
Okay, any further discussion?
Well,
Councilor.
I'm going to speak against the motion because there is a better avenue that's more directly addresses what is trying to be accomplished here. If there was a strong proposal, and that is through a share, and this is not just, this initiative is resting totally on the back of the ratepayers of the village of Kaslo, and that's not really what, for me, the responsibility of the chamber is. It should be Kaslo and area. And it's important that the area is involved in this, and there is a service that stands. There's an economic development service that's shared between the village of Kaslo and Area D, and that would be the method to raise money for an initiative of this type, where you involve the whole area, not just on the ratepayers of Kaslo. The community development fund, it fits what they're trying to do, but it's not really. To me, it's a little bit. This money should be more of a broad-based benefit to the residents of Kaslo, whether it's parks or different things. If you want to have, basically, they're looking at some sort of, what you guys are saying is more along the lines of the economic development officer kind of role. If you want to do something like that, it should be funded by the area also. And that tax service could be turned on, and that would be a much less of a hit and impact on the ratepayers of Kaslo, and it'd be just sustainable funding. If you decide that if they come up with an honest, good, hard-working proposal that shows some outcomes and some deliverables, and you turn on the taxation switch on that, it's ongoing funding. You can go to somebody and say, you got 5 years, show us what you can do. Because this is going to be here today, maybe gone tomorrow, next council, who knows. Once you turn on the tax thing and you specify what it's for, that's sustainable funding and be there for a long time. I can start to see some outcomes. This is kind of a little bit too quick, quite honestly, I don't think it's up. I mean, if you read the roles and responsibilities, I go down here and I go line by line and I visualize exactly what the task is or the work that's going to be accomplished. I see very little value to the rate. I don't see actually that much value to the chamber. Now, if there's something hiding between the lines or behind these words or something around what the intent is, for me, that needs to be demonstrated. It's a lot of money to lay out for what the deliverables are as stated here. That's all.
Further discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Record my vote here. Opposed? Okay. Okay. 2015 projects. So is this just to receive?
Well, no, a little more to. I'd have let Glenn go otherwise.
I see.
These are the quotes we received from Norm DeBurney. We had him and True Consulting come up a few weeks ago to look at the SS Moy National Historic Site and the slope areas beside Water Street that I felt just needed a bit of a closer examination before we started on major capital works there. The good news is that we've got a green light to go ahead with Water Street. There's no issues there. Nothing's going to fall down or anything, but it's certainly been strongly recommended that we put in place a slope stabilising and modification plan for that area below Water Street in the next few years. So it would be something that should go on the list for budget items for 2015. In the case of the SS Moy, we were approached by the Historic Society. They've noticed some slippage on the land, just on the street there. If you go down there, you'll notice that the nice interpretive signs are starting to slowly go over, and the retaining wall is going to require some, that's made from old railway ties, is going to require a bit of an approach. On that front, however, before we would go into having a plan, we should have a consultation with the Historic Society in terms of any potential cost share on that, and also what their favourite options would be in terms of approaching it. We were given some interesting examples. You could do a very nice, maybe more expensive graduated slope that wouldn't look particularly bad, but of course one of the quick and easy ways of fixing it would just be to put a bunch of lock blocks down. But that probably wouldn't be very popular. So there needs to be some discussion about how they want to approach that to make sure the site looks appropriate. But we've probably only got a little bit of time before the signs fall over. The site itself isn't in any serious danger. It's just that particular area of slope. We will probably need to do some sidewalk repairs on it before too long, though. It is impacting the sidewalk there.
So is there anything that needs to be done this year?
The only thing I believe that came up was maybe a little bit of work on the sidewalk to keep it up. But again, it would just need done again probably if we didn't do the main route.
The only thing you can do with the sidewalk is remove it and pour it again, and until the slope is dealt with, you probably just have to do it again, so that would make a lot of sense. It's not that bad that it can't stay as it is for now.
Speaking historically, I don't think there are any lock blocks around when they built that boat. We happen to have historically boulders up in our gravel pit. So I'd just be interested in if he could make a recommendation in terms of size or something like this to stabilize that slope. So it would be kind of an embankment.
We have to find out what they put
And
those
historic.
terraces in there
Yeah.
because they thought they would use it as kind of an amphitheater type thing.
Oh, I see. Okay, well that's, I was thinking historically, sorry.
Yeah, I think we have to find out what
What they
their
want.
plan is for that
Yeah,
area
yeah.
first. And, like you will see.
And I haven't forwarded this to the Historic Society yet, but that would probably be the place to start for that happening.
So I was just going to ask
Yeah.
if it's been discussed beyond that there is an issue, so.
Not really a plan. You know, it has been brought up. But we have a meeting on the 24th, so I could, bring that issue up.
And Councillor Holland?
Well, I just got, if I could stick my nose way into whatever they're doing down there is a grand potential for an amphitheater type setting down there. I mean, and if they were to if the land works was to be done similar to something like they did at the water sports with if you had stepped up the rock blocks, that would really stabilize the bank and it would be functional and it'd be attractive.
Do you know what the name is of the grant?
No, he didn't say grant. Graduated.
Oh, graduate, whatever it is.
Oh, I thought you said there was a grant.
Oh,
I thought that he started that way, but then when he explained the water sports, I got it.
Okay, I get it.
I don't know what I said.
It sounded like a grant. Maybe I was just having a
Everybody's wanting money.
Okay, I got it. That's nice.
Okay.
Do we want to, on this we'll leave it, probably want to start talking about it soon so we can
Right.
get things moving for next year and make a plan, right? Because we're not looking at actually doing this
Right.
until
Yeah.
2015.
Right.
So
All right, and then, so nothing to do at this point other than have.
It would be 2015 budget deliberations.
Right.
Okay, so then on Water Street. Was there anything?
Just in terms of what you see there, they had a look and provided a number of comments. That at least put my mind at ease that we weren't doing anything of concern in the area this year. But they saw enough, and we had enough discussion to know that we do need to do some work down below Water Street over the next few years, and just have an ongoing strategy for dealing with that area in terms of erosion, maintaining trails, strengthening slope, and so on.
A lot of it we can do ourselves
Mhm.
over time as we have material, for instance. Just to have a plan to work towards is what we were kind of shooting for with them.
They clarified some very useful things, like one particular question I had was what kind of, can we put any kind of heavy recreational infrastructure up there? And the answer is really no. Basically some vegetation, basic gravel pathways, no concrete. Put your street lights as far in as you can, not a way out. That was good advice. They just err on the side of caution and don't pour a lot of money into heavy objects on that side.
Can I just ask you a question? Are these, so these are not actually, these aren't invoices, these are quotations?
Those are quotations. They came up for this is based on their small field trip that they came. We need something a little more elaborate for that area, and that would be something I know we can't afford to do this year.
So we'd be looking at probably March or April of next year before they could actually undergo the work.
I may try and put it in the appropriate part of the 5-year plan into the bylaw there, so that we don't lose sight of it.
Do we have to take any action on this at this point? All right, so, is there anything else from council? All right, then I'll let you leave. Thank you, Glenn. And sorry for not switching things up. I didn't realize that the other one would take so long. We could have let you go long ago.
See you later.
All right. So, time for questions? Robert?
That's where I did it.
That's where you have your opportunity, yes.
Let's go to taxation. You wanted to write some sort of note. Well, I just wrote a couple notes here. Village is holding to the average of the province, something like that, in taxes?
That's ratios.
Ratios?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The tax law.
The problem is that we are not in the average of the way the economics are functioning. We are 50% below the economic averages. That's according to the CBT State of the Basin report released in November 2013, 5 months ago. And that's from a Selkirk chair. You know the report I'm talking about. They rate or they not rate, but they state that Kaslo has the lowest per capita median income of the 16 communities. We are half of the average of BC for that. So when we're taxed at the average level, when we're 50% below average, there's something really wrong. I mean, we went en masse. I represented a number of businesses before the assessment board 6 weeks ago. We still have a couple of weeks to April 30th, which is where we can appeal it. And the reason they didn't accept, the reason we're appealing is, first of all, they're using the wrong valuation level. They're using what's called an income level, which is supposed to be used for office rental and apartments. They're supposed to be using a cost approach for the businesses here. And the cost approach takes the value of your land and assets plus any sort of improvements minus depreciation. One of the items that you can use for depreciation, according to their own standards, is if you have, say, a change in a major traffic corridor. Well, why does that change? Because your economy is changing. We have had a massive decrease in our economy here. And you've heard from other people in the business community and disregarded what they've said. I'm here as a person who's never talked to you guys before about this stuff, and I'm telling you, I'm 42% off of my 2009 numbers. And it's been a steady, steady decrease. Last year was 37%. It decreased again. So you guys have to be careful if you're going to write us a letter and tell us we're just using averages. Well, I'm telling you we're below average in Kaslo, and that's really hard to accept that we're being, it's basically patronizing to us as if we don't know what's going on. And we have a clue what's going on, and I'm asking you guys to, look at that as well. One of the things I was told at the assessment authority, and they said I gave a good run to the BC guy who came here from Cranbrook, who's a professional, and what they said was, what do you think the chambers or the village council is going to do if we come in and reduce everyone's assessments by 37%? Well, they're just going to have to raise the rates. They get the same amount of income. And I said, you know what? Let them do that, because that's the truth of what's going on here. They can't lower the assessment too fast, too quickly, but the truth is that we're being overtaxed on Front Street. And for what we're getting out of it, that's one line that a lot of people have been saying, I've heard in relation to the airport. Well, what's in it for me? That's what I'm asking now. Well, taxes I've paid for 20 plus years. What's in it for us on Front Street? We're dying. I have a son who just wrote me and said, Red Seal bakers up in the oil patch, they can't find enough of them. How soon are you able to make it up here? I've made an application so that my wife will run a coffee shop while I go up north, because I cannot pay these bills. When you take homeowners' grants into account, I've got a neighbor who came in sitting in there and says, I love Kaslo, I pay $100 a year in taxes. She owns her own place, she's got a nice retirement amount of money, and I'm paying about $4,000 a year just on the bakery. I do $565 or something with a homeowner's grant on my house. I don't have a problem if you raise my rate on my house by 10%. That would make sense if you could reduce our properties on Front Street somehow. Because in effect, I'm paying 8 times once you take homeowner's grant, because we don't get those on business properties. So that's my rant on that. Okay. As I told you guys, I'm not a member of Chamber of Commerce at this point, so I hope I'm coming at this in somewhat of an unbiased perspective. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done that hasn't been done in this area, in this village, for a long time to develop a positive business atmosphere. One of them is, have you guys looked at the traffic to our major websites that are supposed to attract visitors? Visit Kaslo, which is run by the Pennywise, has less than 300 visits a month. I called up and I talked with the people at the Weather Channel, because then there's this metric you can go online that tells you how many visits are being done to various websites. Ainsworth has the best at almost 10,000 a month. Hotel does, and so forth. But the best in the area is actually the Weather Channel. So I phoned them up, and I emailed them, and I got on the phone, and I said, well, how much is it to advertise on your website, to buy banner ads and all that? And they said, it's $20 for 1,000 visits that we record. And they said, well, to tell you the truth, Kaslo is really small. It's only 12,000 visits a month. I'm thinking, they think that's tiny when we get less than 300 on some of our major sites. And that's what this person has to do, Jim. They have to get out there. Kootenai Rockies Tourism, we are properly linked in with that. Some Kootenai Lake Tourism. All these things, that's what that person is going to do.
Well, that's not what's here.
They talk about building a website, I think. I would say I haven't seen that thing. But I don't see where, and probably that'll be part of the communication, because as I say, I haven't seen that, but definitely things like this are needed. Our online presence, we don't even have a Twitter account for the attracting tourists here. And this guy named Riley Foreman, and this is the thing I'm frustrated, you meet all these people. This guy runs the website for, look it up, it's called Scenic 7 Route, which is from Pitt Meadows to Hope. And it's the Logie Highway, but they've renamed it to Scenic 7, like they're talking about the Coop Route or the West Coop Route or something like that. We're also part of something called Powder Highway. Nobody has that sign around here, but it should be here. These are things that this person, I'm sure, will, once the job gets going, that someone has to at least get some traction, get it going, allow this to be explored and not just to be studied to death. Put some money, allow this person to get in there, and allow them to at least have a chance to succeed. As opposed to just turning it down year after year because it's not at some sort of appropriate level. So, I applaud you guys who put the $8,000 in, and if there's more money and some other way you can get it, if you're happy with your communication with the chamber, I would applaud that. Because we have no other economy here right now other than to develop the touristic aspect. And to go back to what are they going to be doing all summer? Well, this is the problem with Kaslo, is we never think about developing the winter economy until we're actually in winter. But you have to do it starting now, through the summer. You get, right now I got the stuff from Kootenai Rocky, whatever it is, the Rocky Tourism Association. And they've got where you can do co-op ads in Alberta, on the TV with CTV, you can do all sorts of co-op, but you have to book it by June. And if we don't have, we're all so busy down here doing what we're trying to do, that if you don't have a dedicated person who at least is starting to pull this together and has some people like myself giving some input, and Daphne is smart as a whip on this stuff as well. And these people can get in there and begin to get someone to at least explore how to coordinate this stuff, because we're going to lose out otherwise. I don't know what else I can say, but the business community needs a lot more focus. Actually, the last thing I would say is when I was at the assessment authority, and it was evidence here, I feel, the assessment person, one of them came up and said, "You guys don't have a business representative on the village council, do you?" And I said, "Pretty much how we're feeling right now, we've been shut out." And he says, "I can tell. Because there should be someone on that council who is impressing upon everybody the burden that you guys are carrying. And some way of shifting that around and not telling us, oh, well, you're making the average." Well, if we're making the average of what they're making in BC, we wouldn't have a problem. But that's not where we're at. So I'm sorry if I don't know where the question is in that. But I appreciate your listening to me. If you got questions, talk to me anytime. Because I'm going to stick in Kaslo. I've got an investment here. I've got a house. I've got a business. I mean, somehow the village has been very successful at kicking out someone who has invested over $6 million or $4 million, whatever it is Mr. Eklund has invested, and it's up for sale. And I'm looking at the ads for Bolorama in Trail, and this sounds off topic, but you know what? Big person on there as an advertiser is tech. Who's the big player in Kaslo? Every single thing that's out there, from Sufferfest to mom and dad want to do something, they'll go talk to John, and he'll ante up $500. He'll ante up $5,000. Whatever it is that it takes for him to get to the platinum level to help champion that for this area, he does it. And he's gone.
Thanks, Robert.
Sorry about that again, but I guess it's just a place of panic. You know, we're at that place.
Well, I just want to thank Robert for coming to the committee of the whole meeting. I wish he'd been here earlier. You know, I mean, you know, we went to considerable trouble to change the way we do business, to try to get the public to sit where you're sitting and give us this feedback early on in the process. So, you know, we're just starting with the idea of the committee of the whole. I've heard some very interesting things. I've made some notes here. I would encourage other businesses to, you know, take the opportunity to discuss these matters with council. Unfortunately, the budget is done for this year in relative terms.
Hey, we got Water Street being done. Thank you very, very much. You guys all got flowers, right?
Yeah.
We do have an election coming up, so someone from the business community should consider running for council.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I've nothing else to say, but you're right.
Well, it is a good way to have a representative, to get a representative on
Yeah.
council.
All right, so, there's no further business before the committee. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mayor Lang,